Anna here, and today we are going to play a game where we are going to be merchants. But not any type of merchants, we are going to be merchants that are going to go to the famous place of Petra in the game Passing Through Petra from Renegade Game Studios. In this game you're going to try to be the first one to get rid of all of their influence. And if you achieve that, you're going to be the winner. And you achieve that by making the best trades possible, because you're a merchant after all. I'm first going to show you how we are going to do this, and then I'm going to tell you if I had any fun while playing Passing Through Petra. In Passing Through Petra, your goal is going to be the first player to get rid of all of their influence cubes by putting them on the board. You're going to be able to put influence cubes on the board by completing certain objectives and passing certain points on these 4 progression tracks. How are we going to achieve this? In the game you're going to have 4 actions. You're going to have the stick action, the plaza action, the village action and a market action. If you want to perform an action, you have to be able to move towards that action. So if you're already here, you cannot perform the plaza action, as you cannot move towards the plaza action anymore. If you are in this corner, you are not going to be able to perform the plaza and the stick action. So before you can perform those actions again, you first have to do a village or a market action to again be able to walk towards the action field that you want to walk towards. What are all these different actions going to be? I'm first going to explain the market action, because then all of those other actions are going to make more sense to you guys. If you look at this player board, which also right here, every player board is going to have a market row here on the bottom, a merchant row, and we're going to have settlements here on the top. If you want to perform a market action, you're going to initiate a trade between your merchant row, your market row here, and your settlements here. You're going to pick one color on the top here with which you're going to trade. Every color here on top is going to have a certain color that he or she, or a certain merchant that he or she wants to trade with. Every player board is going to be different. Is going to be different in that regard, in which colors they want to trade with. So, for example, here on my green, for my green dudes, they want to trade with the orange dudes. If I want to trade, I have to make sure that there are orange dudes down here, or orange merchants down here, because otherwise I cannot initiate a trade. If I'm going to initiate a trade, I'm going to check how many merchants I have here and how many merchants I have here on the bottom of the corresponding color that he or she wants to trade with. So he wants to trade with orange. I do not have any orange, but normally, let's say that I had 2 of these. What you're going to do is multiply them by each other. So I have 2 here, 2 here, so that would be 2 times 2. It's going to be 4. It's going to have the trade is going to have a strength of 4. As soon as you're going to do a trade, you are going to walk on that progression track, on the corresponding progression track. So for example, for this one, I'm going to have a trade with green. I then can walk 4 steps on that progression track. I'm going to explain those progression tracks later, what they're going to do further, but that is what you're going to do. So you're going to check what color you just traded with, and you're going to check how good the trade is going to be. So in this case, it's going to be 2 times 2, but maybe if you had 3, it would be 2 times 3, which would be 6 steps, and those steps you're going to walk on that corresponding progression track. So now onto those other actions, because how are we going to get the correct colors into our market row or on top? We are going to do this by doing the plaza and the stick action. When you do the plaza action, you are going to take, this is going to be the plaza right here, and you're going to be able to take 2 merchants from that row. So we really wanted orange, so let's get those orange ones. And if you take them, you have to slide them in the left, and now we have these in our market row. And now the ones that came out at the right, they're going to be added into the settlements. So now this is actually pretty good now, guys, because now if we would initiate a trade with green, it would be 2 times 3, which is going to be 6 steps on that corresponding track. So that's actually a pretty good trade. So that is going to be the plaza actions, taking 2 and putting them into the left, sliding them into the left in your market row. Another action that you're going to be able to take is the sig action. With the sig action, then you are allowed to take 1 merchant which is in the sig. So that is this area, and you're going to take 1. By the way, as soon as you take a plaza or a sig action, you're going to fill up those empty spots, and there is a spot right here which says refill. So as soon as we reach that spot, we're going to take new merchants and we're going to refill them until we're again here. And as soon as we again see that refill, because people do plaza and sig actions, we're going to refill again and taking new merchants from out of the back. Every time that you initiate a trade, you're going to have to put one of these cubes onto the trade or the merchant that you initiated the trade with. And as long as that cube is in there, you cannot do another trade action with that merchant. So you want to get rid of those. And that is actually going to be the 4th action, and that is the village action. If you do the village action, you yourself can decide up to 3 how many of these pips you want to get rid of. And if you get rid of, for example, 3, you're going to be able to take one of these cards. If you only get rid of 1, you're only going to be able to take this one. 2, going to be able to take this card. And if you get rid of 3, you're going to be able to take this card, but you're also allowed to take one that's a little bit cheaper. It's up to you. These cards are going to have powerful effects. Some of them are going to be permanent, and other ones are just going to be a one-time only use, which you can see with the star. It's going to symbolize that. So for example, this one is going to give you 1 permanent settlement tile, which is going to be one of these. So you can then pick one color that you want, and this is going to stay there permanently. You're not going to get rid of them. That's because that's something that I forgot to tell you guys. Every time that you initiate a trade, all of the merchants that are here on top, you're going to discard them and they're going to go back into the back. So then you again have to make sure that if you want to trade again, you have to get rid of the cube, and also you're going to have to make sure that those merchants are again on top and the corresponding merchants here on the bottom, so you can do a trade again. But if you have one of these permanent settlements there, you are not going to get rid of those at the moment you initiate a trade. So they come in pretty handy. So those are actually the actions. With the sig and plaza, we're going to take merchants. With the village actions, we can get rid of those pips, so we can then initiate a trade again. And with the market action, we're going to be able to initiate a trade with a merchant that does not have one of these pips in their row. So that's all very interesting and all, but you have not heard one single action that's going to be able to place one of these influence cubes for which you win the game. So let's go on to these progress tracks with which you are actually able to place these cubes. Every progress track has some numbers here on the side, and let's say we're going to do this market trade, and that is going to allow us to do 6 steps. So we're going to start right here, and then we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. Every time you pass this point, you're going to flip over your token, and if you then reach one of these spots right here that are all the same everywhere, you're going to be able to place one of your cubes, and then you're going to flip over your token to show you that you've already done a trade and you cannot do another one, or you already placed an influence cube and you cannot do another one. Also, every time you pass these points, you're also going to get a permanent bonus, which is very cool. With this one, you are going to get an upgrade to your merchant row, and from that point on, your merchant row is going to be 1 extra. So from that moment on, you're not going to have 6 merchants, but you're going to have 7 merchants. So that's pretty good, and that's something that you can do when you initiate a trade with the orange merchant. The blue merchant, if you pass this point, you're going to get 1 permanent settler of your choice, for which I already explained earlier on. With the red merchant, you are going to get one of these stalls, and when you put that right here, you're going to choose one where you're going to put it, and then every time for example, I put it now in the red one, and every time one red is going to be put in my permanent settlement, I am going to get one camel. These camels are coming pretty handy, because with these camels, if you're going to do the market action, you're going, for every camel that you get rid of, you're going to be able to do one extra step. So in that way, you can get further along on the track with your cube, with your disc. And then we have the purple progress track, and with that one, you're going to get a golden merchant, and the golden merchant is some kind of a joker. As long as it is in the merchant row, you're going to initiate a trade. It actually always counts towards when you're going to check how many steps you're going to do on the track. So for example, again, if we would initiate a trade with green, we would have 3 times 3 is 9 steps that we will be able to take, because the merchant always counts towards that market action. And as soon as you push it out on the right, you're going to put it back into the reserve board. So that one also comes in pretty handy. And those are the bonuses that you get right here. This one is a little bit different. You can see that there are no spots to put influence cubes, but every time you pass this point with a camel, you're going to get a camel. And if you pass this point, you're going to get cards, and these cards are going to be objectives, and when you complete them, you're going to be able to put a cube on those. So in this own little way, green is also going to give you the ability to put cubes onto the board. For example, with this one, it says that we have to have 3 cubes on the orange track, and as soon as we have this, we're going to place an extra cube right here and show everyone that we achieved this. This one says that we have to have as many blue cubes as orange cubes on both of those tracks. So 1, 1, 2, 2, and so on. And when we have that, we're going to be able to put 1 influence token on that card. This one is the third one that you're going to have. And that one says that we have to have a permanent upgrade on orange or green, plus a permanent settler on the orange and the green action field. So it's an or plus or action, and as soon as you have that, you're going to be able to place also an influence cube on there. If you pass this, you're going to be able to take one of these cards. You're also always allowed to take a closed one if you're like, nah, these are not really for me, they're not really suited for what I'm doing right now, for my plan. Let's take a closed one, and you can have as many as you want, working on as many as you want at the same time. And as soon as you have them, like I said, you're going to place one of your influence cubes on that. The game is going to end as soon as one player has placed all of their influence cubes, and that player is going to be the winner of passing through Petra. If you've watched the explanation part of the video, this is the next thing that I'm going to say is something that you've probably already noticed, but this is in no means a thematic game about Petra. It's an abstract game where you are going to be trying to be the first one to get rid of their 10 influence cubes. This is important to say because otherwise you are going to be pretty disappointed. I did not really care because I'm not really into Indiana Jones or anything like that, so for me it was just an abstract game. But if that's something that you're looking for, this is not going to be the game for you, and it's important to know that before you're going to play the game. The pieces of the game are good quality, the player boards with the recesses are a very nice touch, everything just fits in there perfectly, and the fact that every board is a little bit different was also something that I really liked, because then you're not always going to go for the same thing, and everyone is just doing their own thing with trying to match the merchants within the market and in the permanent settlement, and it was something that I really enjoyed. The thing that was a little bit more fiddly for me were these mountain or canyon pieces that you had to slide into the board with these little hooks. It was kind of hard to get them in, so we even damaged the board a little bit, and for me these pieces were not really necessary, so that was something for me at least that they could have not put in the game, and the game will be just as much fun. But if you really like it, your game to look good, then you're probably going to enjoy these canyon pieces. Onto the gameplay. I really enjoyed the gameplay. This game is just very unique. It feels very unique, at least to me, with the mechanics, especially the mechanic where you were going to try to make sure that the merchants in the bottom row and in the settlements were the merchants that were going to match, and that when you multiplied them, that were the amount of steps you were going to be able to take. That was a very, very fine balance that you were trying to achieve right there, because sometimes, because you always had to do the step towards the action that you were going to want to do, you were not able to do the action because you did not plan accordingly. In this game, it is very important to plan your actions, because otherwise it can just happen that you want to do your perfect market action. You put everything in the bottom row, and everything in the top row is just ready to go to make that perfect market action, and then you notice that you cannot take a step towards the market, so you're actually not allowed to do that market action. And then you realize that to be able to do that market action, you actually have to go to the plaza, and then you have to take 2 pieces. And when you take 2 pieces, you have to slide those pieces into the left, thereby destroying the perfectly set up market action that you were planning on doing. And then you're not able to do it like you wanted it to do. So it's very important to plan. And I really liked, like I've already said, that market action, I really enjoyed that, but also the fact that you had to move towards the action that you were wanting to do, because then that just brings an extra layer of planning and just thinking accordingly, okay, if I'm going to do this action, then later on I have to do that action, so I can do that action as the last action that I want to do. Because every playboard is different, everyone is going to try to collect different merchants into their market row, and that's just something that I really enjoyed, that I made sure that everyone is doing a different thing. There is some player interaction in this game, but it's really at bare minimum, and that's just the amount that I like my games to be at. I don't really like the in-your-face type of game, so for me it was perfect. But if you want some more player interaction, this is maybe not the game for you. You're just really focusing on your own little puzzle with the market actions that you're going to try to do the best. And sometimes it can happen that someone is going to take people from the sick or from the market or from the plaza that you really needed a certain color, or that they are going to be taking cards that you really needed. But more than that, it's not really, there's not that much, people cannot really thwart your plans and have a card that says that they're going to destroy something on your player board. That's not really in the game. It's more of a blocking type of thing that people are going to block what you're trying to do. What I also really liked was the fact that on those progression tags, you're going to get bonuses. So sometimes you really, really want a certain bonus, and that's just something that you're going to go for, like an extra extension of your market and things like that. And those are pretty important. And people really forget in their first games that green track, where you're not going to be able to put influence groups, but you're going to be able to get those cards that are objectives on themselves. They're pretty important. They're not going to give you any real bonuses except for those camels. So it looks like it's not that important, but it's actually pretty important to get them early on, because then you're going to be able to plan the rest of your progression tracks accordingly. Because you're like, okay, for this card, I'm going to need to have 3 cubes on that certain progression track. Let's try to go for that. The fact that the theme is pretty thin and slept on did not bother me, because I really like abstract games, and this is an excellent game to play. It is really unique. The fact that you have to move towards a certain action and cannot always do what you want to do is very interesting to me. The fact that with the village, it feels like you're doing something to be able to later do better actions. That's just not true, because you're also going to be able to take those cards. So I like that they added that. And the game just feels very streamlined, and smartly put together. Everything just works very good. And I really enjoyed it, especially the fact that it feels also a little bit like a race, because you're not trying to get the most points in this game, but just trying to be the first one to get rid of all of their influence cubes. I really enjoyed this game. I want to go to Petra a lot of times in the future, and that is why definitely, if you like abstract games and games that just have a unique gameplay, I think that you should really try out Petra. You are going to have fun with this game, and that is going to be Passing Through Petra from Renegade Game Studios.